One of the things that we've been talking about the inequality and trying to level the playing field, but we've sort of been dancing around the topic in a way. And what we haven't dealt with is really the systemic racism that has been caused in many ways by, or the inequality that's been caused by the systemic racism in the financial system. And what we've got now is four women who are really fighting to try and change that, and I'm really excited to hear what they have to say. They're going to be ably led by Charisse. I'm going to hand it over to you. Take it away, Charisse.
Thanks so much, Peter. And you're right, it's a pleasure to be here. My name is Charisse Conanan-Johnson, and I'll be the moderator for this panel. I am managing partner over at Nexus, and what we do is we help organizations and institutions, particularly financial institutions, get more capital and customers and services to small businesses and entrepreneurs, particularly those that are systemically held back. And you're in a treat for today because the panel that's before us knows how to hack the existing financial system and is working on some really incredible things. And so I want to first have them introduce themselves and take just 2 minutes to tell them who you are, as well as what you're doing to hack the current financial system. And I'm going to start with Kim, and we'll move down the line.
Certainly. Well, good afternoon, and delighted to be here. Thanks so much, Charisse, for presenting the opportunity, as well as Peter at LendIt. I'm the founder of Founders First. We are a national platform focused on addressing the racial, social, economic equity issues with businesses led by diverse founders. And I came to this work from a standpoint of being a serial tech entrepreneur for 25 years, when it took me 8 years to launch my first business because there were no representation and getting access to capital was really super hard. But looked at it from the standpoint that there should be more 7, 8, 9-figure businesses led by diverse founders, women, people of color, just as predictably as you can find Wi-Fi in Starbucks. And so super excited about what we're doing and excited to be here to share our work with you.
Thank you so much, Kim. I'm going to turn it over to Lauren.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lauren Wampa. I am the head of social impact at a fintech company based in Los Angeles called Dave, where we are in the business of leveraging financial products to kind of advance America's collective potential. It's actually quite rare for a company at our size and at our early stage to have someone who is on the team looking after all things impact. And what we're really doing is figuring out how to be as customer-centric as possible, how to build products and features that really meet the needs of our customers as they're going along their journey from a place of potentially financial precarity all the way to a place of financial health and thriving. So I'm super excited to be here on this illustrious panel, and thanks so much for having me.
Thanks so much, Lauren. I'll move over to Roshana.
Greetings, everyone. Dr. Roshana Novelis, founder and CEO of Enricher. Enricher is a lending platform that pairs both institutional and retail sources of capital to companies led by women, Black founders, and other people of color. When I was 12 years old, my mother told me all women needed to be in charge of their own economic power. And when I was 15, I aggregated over $600,000 in capital to pay for my 11 years in college, including my PhD. And I was just sick and tired of hearing the statistics over and over again. So I decided to leverage my background in technology, entrepreneurship, and aggregation of capital to found Enricher, and happy to be here.
Thank you so much. And last but certainly not least, Kelly, I'll turn it over to you.
Hi, everyone. I'm happy to be here. My name is Kelly Eiffel. I'm the founder and CEO of Guava. We are a new digital bank specifically focused on Black-owned small businesses and really thinking about serving Main Street Black entrepreneurs who have been left out of our financial system, as Peter said, kind of systemically. And so we're trying to solve this problem by offering financial products and services that are specifically designed to meet the needs of these customers and really address the racial wealth gap head on by building more resilient small businesses.
Fantastic. And so I think the reason why the collective voices here offer a unique perspective is they're each tackling it from a bit of a different angle, but also collectively agree that in order to change this system and some of the problems that are holding it in place, we need real solutions. And so we're going to get there. I want to go back to Roshana and really kind of kick us off here. And you mentioned a little bit about your platform and the capital that you're trying to connect, but as I understand it, you're also focused on community and you're focused on coaching. Talk about those other two C's and how important they are to an integrated solution and model that you're working on.
Yeah, so thus far we've connected over 14 million to these companies that we serve. And there are all these statistics that show that women and Black founders specifically do better when we have a like-minded community that support us. And so we've built a community of over 98,000 business owners thus far. And through that community, we provide business financial literacy training. And we found that having that coaching and training about financial models and how to be good stewards of capital is highly correlated with the ability to manage loans and the ability to repay in a timely manner. And so we have integrated that into our underwriting platform and truly believe and understand that having that supportive ecosystem is something that a lot of us simply don't have. And if Black founders specifically have it, they are way more likely to succeed and scale and grow their business.
Fantastic. And just picking up on that last comment in terms of likelihood to succeed, I know, Kim, you also believe in the power of integrated models with what you're doing at Founders First, but also understand what's been important is how the advice and the capital that you're providing also points to the supply chain and the types of businesses. Can you talk a little bit about the revenue side of the house for your businesses and how important that is to what you're working on?
Certainly. So as I shared, Founders First is my 7th venture. And as a tech founder, predictable revenue streams are really critical to be able to attract capital to scale your business. So our model is a accelerator focused on helping grow companies on one side. And then on the other, we're a direct investor, just as you would see in a, 500 startups or Y Combinator. So we actually fund a percentage of the companies that come through our program. And being able to apply, the playbooks that larger, much more scalable businesses have, multiple revenue streams, predictable revenue streams, recurring revenue, subscription streams are important. And then complementing that with a flexible, low dilutive capital. So our investment model uses revenue-based financing in order to fund the companies, but the way that we do it is similar to the way that institutional VCs do this, in that we are not seeking to just provide one infusion of capital, but a series of infusions based on performance, and then a pathway to transition to other capital sources as well.
Like that. And one of those other sources might be from a bank, maybe not, but I know, Kelly, what you've been working on really seems innovative. Can you talk a bit more about the solution that you think your customers, and particularly Black businesses, will be gravitating toward, and perhaps some of the nuances that you're working through?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's just to understand the landscape. Black entrepreneurs are about 20% of Black entrepreneurs have commercial accounts. And so that means that folks are running their business out of their personal bank account, which means that they're not getting access to the financial products that are designed for small businesses oftentimes. And so that's the starting point for Guava, that we want to ensure that we're talking to the 80% of entrepreneurs that do not have commercial accounts and building products for them specifically. And then beyond that, I think, as we all talked about the benefit of community, what we're doing is kind of also embedding that into our platform to ensure that, we're getting out of the way as we build this network of Black entrepreneurs. There is inherent value in folks connecting and growing together. And so we're creating opportunities for mentorship and collaboration all within the same platform. And then, as we think about lending down the road, we are really thinking about ways to ensure that we're not recreating the systemic problems with regard to small business loans, where about 40% of Black small businesses are denied for loans. We want to think about alternative ways to assess creditworthiness to ensure that there is more equitable solutions being created for these entrepreneurs, again, to build and grow their businesses in resilient ways.
Love that focus on resilience, and even what you said in terms of not recreating systemic issues. I want to tie that to, Lauren, perhaps what you guys are working on over at Dave, and a little different in that your focus on the individual, and it could be a small business owner, but broadly individuals. The work that you're doing and the features and products that you're working on. Tell us a bit more about what you're learning from that experience, what might be helpful to folks thinking about innovation and thinking about not recreating the problems that already exist.
Yeah, no, sure thing. I mean, I think the first thing to note is that, we do have a unique approach in that we are servicing folks who, unfortunately, have been at the receiving end of a really predatory systemic system. There's traditional banks and alternative financial solutions that provided either borrowed access to liquidity or credit or capital, or did so at very, very high rates that were very predatory and then locked people in kind of cycles of debt, or didn't have very clear ways of engaging with their digital products and those sorts of things. And so as we kind of built a solution for people to get access to that kind of immediate liquidity with no recourse, no fees, we realized that in order to actually help people get from that place of needing, a $75 advance so that they could get groceries for their kids or a school uniform for their child before their next paycheck, we had to build a comprehensive approach to providing all the needs that they had from a financial perspective. And so, but through all of that, we deeply understand how resilient our members are, our customers are, people, living in a place of financial precarity for no matter, how much time you're in that, whether it's a weekend or a lifetime, it's very stressful, but people are so resilient in understanding the ways in which that they can know where their money is going and coming from. And so we've had to be very intentional about building our products to really support that. So we look at it as kind of like building the rungs of the ladder to get to a place of financial health without being paternalistic about it, without assuming that people just don't know or they don't care to know, but really kind of meeting folks where they are and both inside our product and outside of it. So we really are making sure we're building out like really tangible value adds within our product experience that directly benefit our members. So for example, we have a feature called Side Hustle. So how many of your traditional banks allow you to connect you to additional income? They're actually trying to take money from you either through fees and those are overdraft fees. We have access to a partnership with Level Credit, so people are able to build their credit, which obviously has a real material effect on folks in terms of getting an apartment and those sorts of things. We have a really amazing way that we're looking at kind of how people budget and letting them know exactly what they have to spend at any given moment, before their next paycheck comes in. And so that materiality, that relevance is so important because you're then allowed to kind of, walk with your customers in real time. It demonstrates that you're listening to them, and it demonstrates that you care about providing value in response to their needs, and as close to real time as possible, which of course we know helps to kind of, chip away at some of the systemic inequalities that we've seen traditionally.
Love that, particularly around the relevancy and meeting folks where they are, which is something I feel like often traditional systems might not always get. And so the ways that you're innovating, I think, are lessons learned for folks. And so I want to start a bit of a thread around the future and building off what you guys are working on now, but also talk about some trends and what's needed to drive toward more equity and more equitable outcomes and systems. And Kim, I'm going to come back to you because I know in your experience and the several companies that you mentioned, but even in the current Founders First, if you had to give advice, like one thing traditional systems can do to drive toward more equitable outcomes, what would that be? What would you want to leave folks with?
I would say that it is the connection of real inclusive supplier contracts. There's been an excuse of executional risk with working with companies that are smaller than 10 million, especially if you want to have a contract with Fortune 1000 companies. And so we are really working for those companies that are the 5 and 6 figures to have a backstop so that they can, grow to build their businesses by being the key solution providers to large mid-market and the, Fortune, 1,000, 5,000 corporations, because the key of one of the things that's being touted as part of this whole D&I initiative is increasing the number of diverse workforce, but it's got to be more than that. It's got to be diverse workforce providing premium wage jobs. Another minimum wage job is not really going to address the equity issue, and so that's really what the driving force behind this.
Absolutely. And if I think about what you just said and innovation as well, and obviously we have, big crypto, big trends around what's next, whether also what's happening, what Robinhood is doing in terms of democratizing finance and access. I think about that, Kelly and Lauren, I invite you kind of both to perhaps riff on this question, but what's the next trend that we're going to see, and how do we make sure that we're prepared to bring that value, bring, the solution set for the next big trend?
Yeah. Yeah, I think, what we're seeing in fintech is kind of this fragmentation that, big banks, neobanks, or other other products are really thinking about particular communities, whether it's Black, Latinx, LGBTQ plus communities, and honing in on the need sets for those individuals or those businesses. And so I think, as we are consumers and business owners, we really need to think about how we segment the market in a way that is not kind of paternalistic, to steal a word from Lauren, and really thinking about the real needs and how they're different in each community, and not kind of this cookie cutter mold and saying, well, this is for community X, but the products are, essentially the same, and really being bespoke, because customers are expecting, when we say this is designed specifically for you, that the experience and that the product is different from what you see when you go to traditional or incumbent institutions.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I think, and Kelly, you're more than welcome to steal words from me at any time. But just this idea of, this pervasive idea that, tech is leveraged to kind of democratize access to spaces that have previously been either exclusionary or inaccessible. It really only comes to fruition when we are actually deeply interrogating, the very facets of these systems that are still intact, that are still maintaining the status quo. And so, you asked about what do we see kind of happening in the future. And I think this idea of, I'm really curious to see kind of like where credit, in general continues to go and evolve to, because, it's this weird black hole where we as consumers, we don't really consent to having, whatever information that these bureaus are collecting. We don't sign a paper that says, yes, you can take this information and use it to sell to someone to make a decision about my credit worthiness, or my ability to pay back, or get access to credit or get access to a loan. And so how we're thinking about underwriting and deploying credit and liquidity to people in a way that is fundamentally different than what we've done before, which is, of course, is informed by discriminatory practices, or of course is informed by kind of exclusionary practices. We have to think about, what does that look like? And we have to use different data. We have to use more relevant data. What does it mean to leverage someone's everyday bank data to kind of determine their creditworthiness, and not look at things like zip codes, which are obviously very biased, and thinking about, how the amounts of kind of affordable kind of liquidity and credit that are being deployed is something that can be instrumental in someone kind of moving to a place of true kind of financial health and wealth building. So I definitely implore us all to kind of think about, where are those spaces in the system that, need some deeper interrogation and really will take kind of some creative minds to kind of chip away at some of the status quo, and open a world for us to kind of create new spaces, systems that are much more equitable, and much more topical and relevant for vast majorities of people.
If I can just add one little thing.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Sorry about that. As Lauren was talking, I was just like nodding incessantly over here. But I really think that a lot of it also is predicated on a history lesson that we all have this history and have an understanding of systemic racism because we live it. For entrepreneurs who don't look like us and are building products for people that might look like us, it does require understanding the implications of a zip code on credit. That is not something that we necessarily talk about, or information that is readily available. When we talk about redlining and the downstream effects of it and how it's still part of the underwriting process and the FICO scores that are essentially the determining factor for many small business loans, we really have to think about how these systemic issues that were part of a clearly racist system are still part of how we determine creditworthiness, how we determine who gets a bank account today. And I think that investigation lends itself to reading about really uncomfortable moments in history to understand how we can undo that. For sure. I just wanted to be explicit about it's not just making something different, it's knowing exactly how those systems were created.
I love that. And you were going right where I was going, because I think the level setting on the history, and just to point out, right, racism is about racial prejudice plus the misuse of power by dominant culture in the United States. That dominant culture is white culture, and that is pervaded through systems and structures. And so taking what you and Lauren were saying in terms of the bar or that system is inherently flawed because of the racism that pervades it. And so I want to turn that over then to Roshana, because of the ways in which you have grown Enrich Her and have innovated. Man, $600,000 as a 16, that's a lot of money. So I just want to say, yes, that's awesome. And so I know you know a lot about innovation. Tell us, what's the hack that we need to be thinking about today that 5-10 years from now, people are going to think that is mainstream? What's your take on that in the future of where we need to be continuing to hack or creating new systems?
Yeah, so in order for people that look like us to get as much money as we want whenever we want, there needs to be a greater emphasis on the analytics, the grit, the monetization of our culture, getting credit for that in the underwriting process. So we all know that people who look like us are the first actors often with new trends in terms of any kind of technological platform. We tend to be at the leading edge in the community standpoint. However, those components typically aren't part of the process for evaluating an idea. So I think that as more and more platforms are starting to add this monetization feature, we're going to look back in 5 to 10 years to say, hey, why didn't we look at alternative sources of data? Why didn't we do a better job assessing grit? Why didn't we do a better job looking at the trends that come from certain communities and certain entrepreneurship? Because if we do, we understand that, oh, this is a lower risk for our investors or funders. So I think that is going to be more of a forefront for a lot of fintechs specifically, and the fintechs are going to win because they understand these kinds of trends.
Absolutely. Love that. So I think we have about 10 minutes left. And so I want to at least close this official Q&A portion and saying, a recent study that just came out by Goldman and commitment for $10 billion to change and to invest and to support Black women. The folks on this panel today are all Black women, and I should highlight across the diaspora, whether it's, Black from the Caribbean or the motherland in Western Africa. I know we have Nigerian representation here, or from the South, which is where many folks are emanated from and migrated from. And so this emphasis on Black women, this emphasis obviously that we're seeing across the country on Black and Brown, comes with responsibility and comes with the force that you all are bringing. I want to know read for the audience, what's your individual superpower that you bring to this work that folks, need to identify or at least should know. And as a part of that, and kind of in closing with this prepared remarks, what have we not said today that you think is necessary to continue to hack the system that folks can take with them in their individual lives, but also in the things that they're working on day to day? So I'm gonna start here now. I'm gonna start back with Roshana to kick us off with this question.
So one of my superpowers is aggregation. So I can aggregate large audiences of people to consider finance and talk about business and the like. And so when funders are deciding on who to partner with companies led by Black women, not solely companies that focus on us, but that are led by us, because we have a unique perspective. And furthermore, when you partner with us, believe in us, believe in the way that we are able to connect with our communities, believe in the alternative lending processes that we have and the successes that we have, because we have a track record of it. Oftentimes, large institutions would prefer to use their strategies, which have failed our communities. So look at when you're partnering with companies such as Enricher to leverage the ways that we've hacked and leverage the companies and the data that we have access to, so that all of the communities that we want to serve and we want to win have access to a platform that can uplift and provide the capital, and so that we could all see the world that we want to see.
Say it. So I love that. I'm going to have Lauren tell us your superpower. What's one thing we want to leave with folks?
I think my superpower is kind of unapologetically showing up as myself and unapologetic truth telling. I think, kind of to Kelly's point, it's so important that we don't brush over the real systems that we're up against and confronting. And we have to be uncomfortable. If I have to be uncomfortable, we all have to be uncomfortable in terms of how we're dismantling those systems. So being unapologetically a truth teller in that way is one of my superpowers. And then kind of to Roshana's point, we're probably going to repeat ourselves a bunch of this question, but, believe Black women. We have a wealth of evidence that suggests that proves that Black women have always had the imagination to hold these systems accountable. They've always held us to account, keeping our feet on the fire of making the systems and the values that we have espoused, that we're living up to them. And so my money's always going to be on Black women. I'm always going to center their voices, such that we can kind of begin to kind of build and execute against the strategies that are going to take us to what's beyond this kind of moment of status quo that we find ourselves in.
Say it. I'm going to pass it over. I love it. I love that. I'm going to pass it over to Kim.
So I would say, since I'm probably the senior person on the panel, it's a playbook that's 30 years old that has, I would put it up against Tom Brady's playbook. I've been here, I've done it, and I'm teaching thousands of other people to do it the same way. And the other superpower is persistence. I am making certain that there's going to be many, many, many folks that are going to get through this window this time, not just a handful.
I love that too. We want to push everybody through. And so, Kelly, I want to close in terms of this particular question with your answer to your superpower, and if there's anything that's not been said in terms of leaving the audience with for that hack please feel free to share it.
Yeah. Kim stole my thunder a little bit. I was going to say persistence as well. I'm still going to say it. I was a high school math teacher for a long time. And so I know really intimately how to get around problems, to get people to do the things that I want them to do that they may not want to do. So 17-year-olds in calculus at 8 o'clock in the morning is definitely gave me my superpower. And I think in terms of Black women, that we have grit more than anyone else. We've been doing more with less from the life cycle of this country. And so when you talk about investing in businesses led by us, that's what you're investing in. You're investing in a group of people who have been able to accomplish amazing things against what seemingly would be insurmountable odds.
Love it. And I'll round us out here as your moderator and say yes to the Black woman as one myself. I wrote a whole book on being a wealthy girl, and at the front of that is a Black woman. And so I believe strongly in everything that you have said here today, because it's about that reframing. It's about knowing our history, and it's about challenging, agitating. And you guys are out here doing it in the innovation that you bring to the table, not just today, but yesterday and tomorrow. So thank y'all. I see Peter there, and I know he probably has some questions from the audience.
I sure do. So this was really, it's been just a fun discussion, just listening to you, all five of you actually. It's been certainly illuminating for me, but we have some questions coming in here. First one, how do we move from using data to exclude to proactively seeking out data that can include? I'm thinking that's from Matt Gamser of the SME Finance Forum. Wondering if that might be from a lending perspective he's really getting at there.
Well, I'll jump in. So for inclusive data, what you want to do is look at data that correlates with success. So earlier I mentioned grit factor. So is someone able to persevere no matter the situation, right? So as we can access more and more factors of grit, those exclusionary elements should be illuminated, right? So we have to be innovative and proactive to look at other data sources that point to the benefit or to point to the capability of someone to be successful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'd also like to call out just this.
So there's.
Oh, go ahead, Peter.
Sure. No, you go ahead. You go ahead, Lauren.
Really quickly, I just want to call out the fact too that not just, the data itself is very important, but who's at the table analyzing it and leveraging it to build solutions and products on the back end is very important as well. So that bias can come in when you're looking at a piece of data and you're coming at it from, your perspective. You're not considering, the audiences that you might not be a part of. So thinking about who's at the table is really important as well.
Right. Got it. Okay, another one here. We are seeing more niche fintechs focus on Black and Latinx communities today. Are you optimistic that real change is not just possible, but likely now?
It's definite. The revolution will be televised this time. Social media is making everybody a method of being a publisher. So it's not just a quiet transformation that's going to happen. Everyone has an opportunity to share their story, share their success, and as well as share other successes as well. So that's why the deep level of change will be different than what has happened in the past. We got a lot of work to do, but
if I can just add to that,
well,
I'm sorry, Kim. If I can add to it, I think focusing on Black consumers or Black customers is because we have been systemically underserved, and so that's the reason why. It's not that people are thinking of this as some charity exercise, but that it's identifying a gap or white space in the market, and creating solutions for that. Fintech in general, again, is becoming more and more bespoke and figuring out ways to target customers even more accurately and more acutely, and so that Black customers are benefiting from that change in the way that we think about fintech and the landscape changing as well.
Mm-hmm. And just to add, every company led by a Black founder that we funded to them, we have enabled change right now. So I know we're all in it to have this impact in the community, and each of us is making that impact. So it's working.
All right. So a question here for Lauren. Yeah, I have read Dave has a larger share of people of color in your customer base than typical fintechs. Are you serving people of color with any special programs?
Yeah, so so the sheer fact that I'm kind of at the company, kind of looking after our social impact strategy is very unique. And one of the things that I really love to do is take companies, and Dave specifically, from a place where we're thinking about impact as this kind of afterthought, charity focus, philanthropic focus approach, to really thinking about how is it that we're like uniquely serving and reinvesting in our community of members. And so everything from kind of internal capacity building around efforts for diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging that then, of course, inform, who's at the table to build our products and services, supporting teams like member success, supporting teams like marketing and design, so that we have the most robust kind of people around the table building with the distinct needs of our customers in mind. And so we're building some really incredible programming right now around how we leverage nonprofit partnerships better to better serve our customers, thinking about the ways in which we can continue to support them in terms of getting additional income and the like. So yeah, we don't, again, the idea here is not to be, not to pander, but to really deeply understand what the needs are and then solve for them.
Interesting. So if I could ask one of my own questions now, I'm curious about, like, you see that, at the high levels of large banks, there's very few women of color, or people of color for that matter, calling the shots there. I'm just thinking about the people that are listening here that might work for banks or might work for fintechs. What can these companies do to really, is it just a case of giving more opportunity, bringing more people in, or do you have any ideas about how you can create a more equitable workplace, in fintech, in financial services?
I'd like to start with the opportunity can be to build alliances with many of the women on this panel, because it will help expand the perspective with regards to how to reach more people of color and have a significant impact in a variety of communities. The level of change of an institution that may have 2 to 3% over a period of 10, 20 years may not be as drastic as having an impact in organizations like we lead that have the majority of the folks in the team are diverse founder and Black and brown founder led.
Okay, well, I think we'll have to leave it there. Unless you want to, Therese, you want to say the last word?
I would just say, to piggyback off of Kim too, in addition to alliances, I would really, and I think we used the word interrogate today and agitate, and kind of turn that question back, like, what do those people need to be doing to self-examine, to learn for themselves, to understand what might be challenging or blocking, and go on their own discovery journeys, quite frankly, to really get to the heart, because the talent is there. It's not a pipeline issue. These are about dismantling some of the structures and systems that have been holding back some of the progress that we want to see.
Yeah.
Right. Well, Therese, I really appreciate that. You expertly led this session. I think it was a real treat for me. I'm sure it was a treat for the audience as well. So, ladies, thank you very much.